Jane, I want to say how grateful I am that you are willing to be in conversation with me and with our whole congregation about how we might connect with each other and with the divine in this time in these virtual and digital ways. So I know you've had a good deal of experience with centering prayer, and I wonder if you might tell us a little bit about how you approach centering prayer, give us some guidance about what is helpful when we are praying, gathering with two or three or more in this way.
Thank you, Maggie. I'm so happy that people are opening this conversation with the congregation. It's wonderful. And to start with centering prayer, and I think many people in the congregation are familiar with it, but it's basically a practice of silently resting in God for 20 minutes. And usually people do it at home once or twice a day, but it's so helpful for people who are developing such a spiritual practice and sustaining it to have a group. So I've been involved in centering prayer groups for about 20 years, and Legacy Dunbar has had long-standing groups, and Legacy Ryerson began a group in 2013 that then I joined as we came together as Pacific Spirit, and it's met weekly all year round. And there's the time of sharing the faith journey, sharing the practice, studying scripture, and sitting in a circle together, seeing and supporting each other. So that's the nature of the group we're talking about. And of course, when this unbelievable, unprecedented, unimaginable situation arose, the centering prayer group very quickly moved to a digital platform, almost within a week of the distancing process. And the reason for that is the continuity is so important to support our faith journeys. So in that process, there are many things that we've been learning. And one of the things I'd really like to start with is for us to think about what happens when we come together digitally instead of in that sacred circle in the sacred space that automatically enfolds us in the divine together. Now, all of a sudden, we're on technology that we're often using in a much more distracted way, in a much more heady way, multitasking. And how do we presence together and create sacred space? So I think one of the easiest ways to look at that is to actually go through a very simple 3-step process that people even watching this can use right now as they're watching and entering with us into this kind of sacred inquiry. So it begins with centering within ourselves and connecting to the divine. And secondly, connecting to the other and finding a way to present and see them present. And thirdly, really opening up to pay attention to that we space, the space between us, which may be just two, or it may be a circle, but where two or more are gathered, we are assured that the presence is there. So here's one way to do this, very simple. It's good to start by taking your eyes off the screen for a moment, letting your eyes rest. They might close, or just look down at your knees. Rest your eyes and feel your body. It's good to just feel your feet. Can you feel the sensations in your feet? We are here in these amazing physical bodies, which are part of the mystery of creation. Can you feel your hands? And now can you sense your breath? The gift of breath that is given us and breathes us throughout this life. And sensing as best you can your whole body present here, sitting. And now sensing in however you may best experience that, the presence of the divine. And of course, we know that God is He, the one in whom we live and move and have our being. So we know that is always present. But it's good to remember and to sense that. And many of us will actually sense that flow of energy in our body that is part of that mystery of life from the creative source. And now lifting our eyes and looking across, if it's one person, to that one person. And you may not be able to meet their eyes directly, depending on how the cameras are set up. No worries. Looking at that person, or if it's a circle, slowly looking from one to the other. And in looking at that person, there's just a two-dimensional image, but seeing beyond that to who they really are, which is a beloved child of God. And so the child of God in me greets the child of God in you. And we're so grateful to be here together, embodied in the presence. And then as we make that connection, we open to the space between us, something new that arises because we've gathered in the presence. And that's mysterious. We have a sense of openness, gratitude, and curiosity of what's going to arise as we meet together to do our prayer practice or share our faith journeys or right now make a sacred inquiry together. So very simple, within yourself, in the presence of God, connect to the other and begin to open up that space. So I'm curious to ask you, Maggie, just now, something about what you've experienced just doing that.
I find you have such a gentle, welcoming, and yet also enough direction in what you say that it does invite me into prayer in a new way. And I am grateful. And grateful for the conversations we've had about the possibilities for prayer.
And so I invite those people watching as well to maybe play with this, experiment a bit as you have your meetings. It might be a scripture meeting. It might be, whatever small group you're meeting with, virtual coffee even, to bring this presencing and reminding ourselves just so briefly. You can do it without words within yourself. Or you may decide as a group to say, let's just take a moment and connect. So I invite people to do that. And having said that, I do want to ask you a little bit of something, because I'm curious, just as someone touching down on the Centering Prayer Group. It was so wonderful, Maggie. The first day that you came to work, it was an experience. You came to the Centering Prayer Group and joined it, and it was so lovely, such a gift. And it's just led to such a profound connection. This is the importance of these spiritual practice groups. And I know you visited last week. I wasn't able to be there, the virtual version. And I think it's important for us to be very real about some of the sadness we experience as we, taste both of those things. And I just wonder if you have any observations from that.
That first day I joined you almost 2 years ago now, I felt God's presence in a palpable, powerful way. And you say you were grateful I joined. I was grateful to be there. When I joined Centering Prayer last week, which I appreciate is carrying on in this virtual way, I just feel removed. The screen somehow, I wouldn't like to say anything comes between me and God, but the screen comes between me and fully entering into the presence of God, or fully opening myself to the presence of God in me and in others.
And I think that really is a challenge. It takes so much, it's challenging us much more deeply to sense what we know to be true is that, as John Wesley taught out in the fields, right? It doesn't have to be in the building. It asks us to ask the question, what does it take? Jesus was teaching out in the fields, sometimes in the temple, but sometimes out in the fields, and presence was there. So it challenges us to reach deeper and consider and sense and question. We would not sign up for this curriculum that we are getting right now voluntarily, but sometimes life delivers us a curriculum that maybe there's something we needed to explore. What does Spirit want us to do here? So yes, it takes more attention. It takes more intention. And it takes some familiarity. I think over time in a group like the Centering Prayer Group, you can see the energy field building as people are more used to how to be present there. And what's interesting there is that some of the people from the group are meeting on the internet, on the screens, and in parallel, there's another group of people who either don't feel comfortable with the technology or just don't have it, who've been meeting on the what we call the internet, sort of a little circle, so they're connecting. But for them to sustain practice, they don't get a chance to chat the faith journey, but it may happen with separate phone calls and so on, and it does. But there is a sense, because there's a core meeting, it does help sustain those people as well in their practice. So it is not perfect, and it's not going to be perfect. And yet it is what it is. And so as human beings have done over time, as long as we know, we figure out how is Spirit moving through this, and how can we move and be moved with Spirit through this situation. Right. There may be a few blessings, and I guess that is one of the blessings I would reflect on, is it sure led to this really a lot of questions. What happens when we gather? What is the meaning of a gathering? Virtual communion, can we really have communion in that, together in that way? And we need to sense that. The other thing is for people who have transportation issues, and obviously for those people who are, even as the churches come back together, will not be able to join, right? To be able to be connected in a virtual way may be really important. So there may be some blessings. I'm hoping, and I've noticed that in myself, that being intentional by bringing our spiritual practices to the internet has changed my behavior on the internet generally. It's really helped me be much more discerning, to spend less time on, to really pay more attention to the things where there's genuine connection and not passive watching. And I've talked to others who are having the same experience. Maybe there's a right use of technology that we're tapping into here that needs to be explored. And I'm so grateful. I should mention Doug Smart has been the one who's been managing the Zoom calls for that one. And he's so lovely and so patient with it, and was so quick to try to work to get everybody on it. And that is a great blessing and commitment.
Well, I find you a great blessing, and I'm just grateful that you were willing to share in this way today. And thank you that you continue in prayer. Whenever I've served a church where there's a Centering Prayer Group, I feel like the whole congregation is held by that ongoing prayer week to week to week. And so I'm grateful for today, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.